Hello again, and welcome back to the composition vlog. It's been a little bit over 2 weeks since I last filmed, and yeah, when I last left you I was kind of battling sort of exhaustion, and that's been sort of lingering, but it's been getting a bit better, and I've actually got quite a lot done since then. Had a few days out because we went to Denmark to play at Spore Festival, so we were there for 3 days. And the first day we did a lovely little improv gig with Ryoko Akama, where we're just playing little objects. She does these marvellous sound sculptures, very delicate sort of sounds and sort of paper and tinkly things, and it was really just lovely. I really enjoyed that. So I was playing my pouch of little bells from Lint Bunnies. I have to say, they're not really musical bells, they're Lint Bunny bells. I've got about 7 of them now. I've been collecting them for a few years. And also a flip book, which I made during my design degree, because I had a sudden fear of a technological crisis for a sort of animated piece I had to do, and so I made a flip book just in case the computer failed, which has been sitting in a box ever since, and it finally found its purpose as a musical instrument. So I was sort of flipping that and tinkering with the pages and scrabbling at the cardboard, and yeah, that was really lovely. So that was the first night, and then the second day we spent all day in rehearsals and doing tech, and did our gig in the evening. It was very enjoyable. It seemed to go down quite well. Audience vibe was a bit different from what we're used to. I kind of used to people laughing at things now, and they didn't really. I don't think I really turned in my best performance of Dot Drip Line Line 8918 Edge. Mostly, I suspect, because I had to spend the entire day developing an earworm of Total Eclipse of the Heart. Turn around, every now and then I get a little bit lonely and you're never coming round. Turn around, every now and then I get a little bit tired of listening to the sound of my tears. Every now and then I get a little... which is not something I thought I'd ever be called on to do, but it was necessary for Marcello Lucatelli's Impossible Penetrations, because at the end of that we all have to sing power ballads, and I have a tendency to get completely derailed as soon as Edward starts singing Baby You're the Best, because I know that one quite well and then I can't think of any other songs, and so it's sort of become this trope that Caitlin doesn't know any songs. So yeah, so I had to sort of hammer in Total Eclipse of the Heart and to get that happening, and I think it sort of derailed Edge a little bit, because those two things don't really go together. Odd. Anyway, it all seemed to go off quite well, and we had the next morning sort of wandering about, got to go to a gig and an installation and see a bit of Aarhus, which was lovely. And then we came back and went straight to Snape. Yeah, so it's been pretty busy, and apart from a couple of days of poorliness, I've been pretty much full tilt on quiet songs. There's been sort of a lot of detailed work done on this, and I'm not even going to attempt to do it chronologically, because otherwise we would be here for hours. So I just want to sort of pick out some key points that have changed since the last time. Yeah, so we were working on it every day at Snape, and then on the last day we had an open session performance, which is basically work in progress that people can come along and see. So I pulled it out there and just gave it a run to see how it was sort of sitting together, which was very helpful, and there's a ton of work still to do on it. There's quite a lot of things I'm not terribly happy with. But it's starting to feel like a piece now. And it is, in actual fact, a piece for viola, video, and little bits of voice. Yeah, so I've gone with all three. It was really a really strange place to be, not knowing what your piece was actually for, but it's good to have that sorted out. And the last episode I talked about starting to work with silenced voice video, sort of video of my face in black and white, and that's now central to the video part. I'd say that's sort of the key thing. There are bits of the other footage in there as well, but that's the main bit. I'm going to show some snippets in here, but I don't want to show too much, simply because this is promised to Snape as a world premiere, and I don't really want to give the game away. I do have a recording of the entire open session performance though, and I'll put that online after the Aldeburgh Festival, so if you're watching this later, there'll be a link below. So last time I was talking about sort of next steps, one of the next steps being to record live viola to the video footage and see how that matched up, see how that felt to actually be trying to basically lip sync the face on viola. What I found was that I missed the start of every single section, but that I quite quickly got into the swing of it. When it did match up, it worked very nicely. It reinforced that it was going to be very hard to get everything completely in sync, and also that if I failed to get everything completely in sync, and that was what I was trying to do, it was going to look like shit. So this has sort of been interesting, challenging. As things have turned out, it's moved along in quite a pleasing way, challenging but not impossible. Yeah, but I just did a sight read through and recorded that and synced it up, and that has been the basis for structuring the video. So what I've been doing is sort of using that audio as a way of determining types of content, and so it's been structured as sort of blocks of content, which to start with were quite long sections, and then I realised I really did want to cut it into smaller pieces. So I've been working with kind of smaller and smaller chunks of the material and intercutting them a lot more and doing some repetition as well, and I'm much more pleased with that than with the larger sections, which just sort of seem to lack a bit of momentum. I'm not quite sure why. Yeah, it just really wasn't working very well for me. There's obviously been a lot of ideas about synchronization and separation. How precisely do things need to match up with the visuals? As I've mentioned, basically the process throughout the Snape week was that it loosened up as it went along, and now I'm feeling that it needs a little bit of tightening, just a little bit. I'm thinking that if I can get, the guys were saying that when it went out of sync with the video, when I wasn't watching the video, when I was looking at the audience, that was actually really interesting to have that not be 100% synchronized and predictable as this is this. It's a more complex relationship then. And I like that idea, but I'm sort of thinking, looking at the video from the Friday performance, where I made that first sound far too short, and as a consequence, nothing even vaguely synchronized until about a third of the way through the piece. I'm thinking it might be better to try to work really hard on getting that first sound and the start of the second one very tight, to try and be pretty much perfect, and then have it kind of trail off, so that I think it's quite a powerful start, and then there's a gap, and then to come in there, and then it can do whatever it wants. I think that is the limit of the precision that I'm interested in. So when I went to Snape, I had this idea that I would start the piece maybe in the dark, but with my back to the audience, facing the video and sort of using the video as a score, and that at some point I would turn around and face the audience and not be looking at the score but playing the same thing, and gradually it would sort of be this sort of divergence, emancipation. and sort of separating out from each other but still related and becoming more independent. And I'd had this idea that I might sort of at some point then introduce Tim with his junk percussion as sort of an extra level of separation, that it would then be him and me sort of having that connection, not me in the video. That didn't happen. I went in with these ideas that, oh, we'll get the structure to a point and then Tim and I will do some improvising and we'll come up with something. Yeah, we never got to that. As it became tighter, it just didn't feel necessary. It felt like there was sufficient stuff going on already. So I was working with layering last time, just with some tests, and it has actually become quite a key thing in the piece. It's becoming more complex. So we've got layering of sound, we've got layering of different types of footage, we've got layering of the same types of footage. And I think there will be probably more layering to happen as well. There are bits that I feel need an increase in complexity. Yeah, so I'm going to play around with that a bit. I've been using almost exclusively contact mic sound, where I am using sound in the video. I really, really love the sound of the contact mic on the window, but I've also been using some contact mic on the back of the viola stuff. But I'm beginning to think now that as I've introduced more sound, that sound becomes a bit less special and peculiar as you get used to it. So I'm thinking I might replace some of the sound and think about maybe having additional sound being something close mic'd if it's vocal work in particular, or unmanipulated contact mic on the viola, which is quite a dry sound, and sort of to get these kind of layers of this kind of fluffy, reverby contact mic on the window sound versus quite dry and precise sounds might be interesting. So just before I went to Denmark, I mean, I'd been working sort of to a point of, okay, video and viola. Didn't really know where the voice was going to come in. Had some ideas for the voice in the video, but not beyond that. I've been reading Paul Cranan's Composing Under the Skin recently, which is great. I'm absolutely loving that. And he mentioned something about, of course, Glenn Gould's famous humming as he played. And I started thinking, oh, you know, maybe I could just hum to myself. Maybe it doesn't have to be sort of forward projecting voice. Maybe it could just be quiet. And that was sort of the start of it. And now it's just back to the voice is in there, but it's sort of alternating with the viola rather than being simultaneous, which is better in terms of control, but also it's feeling very blocky to me at the moment. I'm thinking I'm going to cut a lot of it, but I might also go back to that idea of very quiet sounds being done simultaneously. At Snape I was using a headset mic when I performed it, which was working really well actually, because it picked up the voice, but it also picked up all the viola sound too, and I didn't have to worry about there being an actual microphone on the viola, because the DPAs can sometimes get in the way a bit. Last time I mentioned Phila de Barlow and thinking about highlighting connections, highlighting edits. So I introduced that quite early on at Snape, and I've been playing around with it. I think it's now definitely part of the piece. And the way I've done that is sort of little flashes of colour. They're just, I think they're 16 frames long, and they start to fade out as soon as they come in. So I've tested out all one colour, different colours for different types of footage. So the face has one colour and the sort of studio shot has another colour and the viola has another colour. And the state it's in sort of at the moment is a different colour for every edit. I think that's a bit much. I'm sort of thinking that I might identify a limited palette of colours and just sort of apply them randomly, so it's not just consistent or the same all the time. There's little surprises. You don't quite know what colour you're going to get next, but it's not as chaotic as different colours for everything. Yeah, which I'm just feels a bit too much really. So maybe 4 to 6 colours, something like that. Just to pluck a number out of the air. Yeah, so overall I'm quite pleased with how it's progressing. The most troublesome part is the central section, which was the bit I hadn't really tackled by the first day of Snape. I had this vague idea that it was going to be sort of separate from the video and maybe it could be improvised. So I started out trying to improvise it, which was rubbish. Really, really quite bad. And then sort of I got to a point, it's like, okay, well maybe I need to actually at least sort of semi-compose this. So I came up with a few ideas of what would follow what, which definitely improved it, but I'm feeling now that I've got a bit used to it that it's a bit fussy. It's sort of this back and forth kind of vocal work, etc. And then sort of like a note, and then go back to that. It's quite laboured and uncomfortable. And what I found in the Friday performance was that there's a lot more to be had out of, there's this gesture I'm doing where it's basically sliding the bow down the fingerboard and then back again, and there's all sorts of things you can do with tremolo and sort of grungy little tones and things. And I think I really wanted to take that further, but I knew I was running out of time, and then basically within a few seconds of finishing it, I was into a section where I should have been doing something different. I should have been on to the end of the piece. So I think what I'm going to do is just cut a large part of that and focus on having sort of one big sonic gesture, and that'll be stronger. I also need to rethink the video in this part. It's been through a few iterations. So to start with, it didn't have anything because I hadn't done anything. And we talked about it and different approaches, and I tested out the idea of sort of a fade out, that the video would be very, very much slowed down, fading out. Josh suggested fading out to white, so I tried that out. So it faded out very slowly and then sort of stuck on a still at that fade out and just sort of kept on going. And then I think it faded out again, and then the ending came in. Yeah, Ed's response to that was that it looked like I'd died. So yeah, which made me laugh, and then I looked at it and went, yeah, you're right, it is rather funereal. So that very quickly got scrapped. So the latest version fades quite quickly just to white, but my feeling is that it just looks like something's been forgotten or not made or whatever. It's got plain colour flashes in it, which I thought might help to pull it together, and they relate to what's going on with the sound. But it's just not very satisfying. It just looks like it's a bit broken, to be honest. So I'm thinking I might go the other extreme entirely and just do so many layers of video in there that it becomes meaningless, that there is no connection, and then the viola, it's just this kind of, really big thing. There's just like one thing that gets extended out while there's all this chaos in the video. I think that might be better, but I need to tinker with it. So I think that's it for this time. Thank you very much for watching. As always, if you've got any comments or questions, please leave them below, and I will see you again next time. Thanks. Bye.